Hi, everybody. This is Javeria, and I'm super honored to be joined today by Dr. Howard Franz, somebody that I've been reading up on a lot and I look up to a lot. A big name in dentistry. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about him. And today we are joined by him. We're going to hear about his journey, how he started, where he started, and what he's doing right now. So welcome, Dr. Franz. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's an honor to be on your program.
Thank you so much for taking time out for me today. Let's get right to it. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me about where you started, how you got into dentistry, and how the journey has been for you.
Well, it's been an amazing journey. I was born in 1962 in Wichita, Kansas, and mom and dad were Catholic and had seven kids, and we were so poor, I didn't even know we were poor. I mean, because everybody was poor in my neighborhood. And my dad got into a franchise business, a fast food franchise called Sonic Drive-In. And he went from delivering rainbow bread the first 10 years of my life for about 11,000 a year. And the first year he made 60. And then he went on to keep adding Sonics. And eventually he had like nine. And we moved into the very nice neighborhood, Hidden Lakes Estates. And my next door neighbor was Kenny Anderson, the dentist, the valedictorian from Creighton University. And I had five sisters. And going to work with my dad at Sonic was my whole life, and I loved it. But we made hamburgers and chili dogs and French fries and onion rings. But sometimes I go to work with my next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson, who was a dentist. And there was no technology back then, hardly at all. And he had X-ray machines and dark rooms and was doing root canals and crowns, and it was love at first sight. And my gosh, that was in the seventh grade. And I finally I wrote my dental school letter and I said, "How do I become a dentist?" And they told me I need to go to high school and take science classes. And it was just my dad. It was the hardest thing on him. I always remember this lesson because it just crushed him that I didn't want to go into Sonic. And he's like, 8 years to be a dentist? He goes, in 8 years you could be a multimillionaire with five restaurants and 10 restaurants. And Sonic did grow into be a huge successful chain, still is this day. But I just didn't want to make tater tots my whole life. I love the dentistry side of it. And so I went to dental school, University of Missouri, Kansas City, graduated in 87. And I learned so much from the franchise because you got to remember in restaurants, 40 to 60% of all new restaurants go bankrupt in the first 2 years. It's probably the worst business in the world. And my gosh, they their attention to demographics and cost and accounting. And I mean, how do you make profit? I mean, when you go to McDonald's and buy a hamburger for $3, name me one thing in a dental office that costs $3. I mean, the cheapest thing would be an X-ray, that'd be 25, an exam could be 50, 100. I mean, how you make money off an order of French fries is mind-boggling. So I knew that. So I started to do the demographics because getting to know Kenny Anderson, I got to eventually be having regular lunches with all the dentists on the west side of Wichita. And they would just tell me that the population remained the same. And every year, UMKC Dental School and Creighton University would dump another 20, 30, 40 graduates into the city. And they would show me back when it was handwritten on pegboard how their gross sales and income was going down every year. So, and then I met my wife and mother of my four children. She's an ex-wife now, but she she fired me from working too much. But anyway, she didn't want to live in Wichita, Kansas, and she wanted something warm. So she wanted Phoenix. So I did the demographics of Phoenix. I got before computers, laptop, internet, I got a big old 6 foot by 4 foot map, and it had the 303 census tracts, and I put a black pen for every dentist, yellow for orthodontist, white for endodontist, green for periodontist, all that, mapped it all out. And on each one of those census tracts, I had the 70, 80, and 85 mini census, and I just, a simpleton, what was the population? What was the median income? How many dentists they had? What was the dentist to population ratio divided by the median income? And basically, the downtown, the dentists kept going in and they kept tearing down residential to build commercial. And it was just, I mean, there was one corner in Tempe, I think it was like 6200 South McClintock, that had like something like 50 dentists on one corner in one medical dental building. And I realized where the low density was, and I found a zip code 85044 that only had one dentist for every 6,000 people, and they were building 50 homes a month. I mean, Wichita was barely building 50, no, 90 homes a month, and Wichita was barely building 90 homes a year. And so I had perfect demographics where absolutely the worst dentist in the world who had feet instead of hands, feet on his wrist, a horrible dentist. You could have done well. The demographics. And when people say demographics don't matter, I say then fine, go set up in Tanzania or Afghanistan and practice in Afghanistan for a couple of years and tell me how demographics don't matter. They absolutely matter. And in fact, you'll see the DSOs, they all are going to 60,000 median household income or higher in urban, because urban people have better dental insurance. They don't go 60,000 or under. That's why I like Aspen Dental. Aspen Dental has their own denture lab, and they actually stole my mom's brother fired me as a free dentist. I was free. And he only had to drive like 30 minutes. And but he went to Aspen because when he came to me, he had to drop his denture off in the morning and then pick it up in the afternoon. When he went to Aspen and paid out of pocket, they did it right there. So he went there, they did it, and he drove home in an hour. And I got fired for Aspen, but it shows you that Aspen knows their customer. They're going. In fact, when you talk to Aspen, they say we like to go where they ain't. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
dentists aren't chasing Medicare, Medicaid, low income. So I set up here, and I immediately tried to learn my clinical dentistry. I signed up to get my 5-year program with the fellowship in the Academy of General Dentistry. Then went on to get my mastership in the Academy of General Dentistry. The two products that insurance doesn't manipulate the fee. I remember at Creighton is where I went to undergrad, because that's where Kenny Anderson was a valedictorian. And that's where Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of all time, and he would come over and lecture our business class. I remember asking Warren, I said, well, Creighton has three schools, medical, dental, and law. I said, which one of those three do you like? And he goes, well, I wouldn't do anything in healthcare because it's too much capital expenditure and someone else is setting your fees. He goes, that's a recipe for death.
Yeah.
And we see that when I got out of school, insurance was just kind of starting. Everyone was paying cash. And when the PPOs, Delta Dental, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Connecticut General, these big insurance companies got in charge, they lowered the fee 40%. So it's kind of silly when I hear dentists, I'll say, well, what's your major overhead? Just see what they say. And they always say, oh, payroll, man, the staff, so expensive. I go, your insurance write-off. You charge $1,000, but you're only going to do it for 600. Your 40% advertise PPO insurance write-off is your number one overhead, and your insurance write-off is higher than your labor, lab, and supplies. And they always bitch about labor, lab, and supplies. And what's kind of funny, when I look at the $1 million practices, I mean, when I find a practice that's doing 1, 2, or 3 million a year, they always spend 5 or 6 or 7% on advertising to get that full fee patient, because half of America doesn't even have dental insurance. And then I got interested in, well, what are the fees that insurance doesn't set? Braces, Invisalign, clear aligners, and implants. So I got my fellowship in the Mish Institute. I got my diplomat in the International Congress of Implantology. I did every ortho program. Now, remember, I'm in America, and orthodontists are a cartel. They don't teach it in any dental schools. And if you teach general dentist ortho, you'll be banned from ever lecturing at anything, at any orthodontic meeting, and you'll be treated like you're a leper. So I went to Brock Rondeau, who now put his course on Dental Town. I went to Richard Litt, who just recently passed away. He was the chairman of the ortho department at University of California, San Francisco for a decade. Then went on to the University of Detroit for another decade. He couldn't get an invite to speak at any orthodontic meeting in the world because that's how money focused the orthodontic education is. We call those gatekeepers. So, but now with international orthodontists like from Australia lecturing in the United States and online, and like I say, we got an online course. You now have access to information that used to be kept from you. But so I got out of school and I spent, the first 10 years just trying to learn how to do clinical dentistry. I think it's very hard. But I saw in 1994, I saw this company, you probably never heard of it before, called Amazon.com, and it went public, and nobody could figure out what the hell is this company doing? And
Yeah.
why is the stock keep going up? And I was so dumb. I watched that stock go up from 94 to 95 to 96. It took me till 1998. It took me 5 years to figure out this new thing called the internet. And it's so funny because now you see the same irrational behavior of AI. When the internet, I remember talking to Dennis in 94, 95, 96, and I got AOL.com for my kids because the teacher said they needed it for homework. And I'd say something, these old dentists say, is that something you read on that internet? It sounds like you're on that www dot thing, or did you get that from the, and it's like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go to a library and check out a 50-year-old book or walk in here with the mat? It just, people don't like change. And right now, it's so funny listening to AI. They think the world's going to end. And, this happened in England. I remember when the people almost overthrew the king because when they came out with those textile mills, they were losing jobs, and the people demanded that the king throw all the textile mills in the ocean, or they were going to kill them. His brain trust said, no, no, no. Who wants to do that their whole life? They could go in and be doctors and dentists and lawyers and restaurants and fine arts and music. I don't want everybody, just making weaving, wool and cotton. And the funniest one was India. In 1980, I read Milton Friedman's book Free to Choose, and that just changed my whole between Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and Milton Friedman's Free to Choose all smacked me in 1980. I would never be the same. But Caterpillar had canceled a bunch of orders for equipment because the new prime minister said, "Well, we got 1,400,000,000 people. We need jobs. We don't need heavy equipment." And they didn't know what to say to him, so they sent Milton Friedman over there. And Milton Friedman, he said, "Well, show me what you're talking about." And he walked him out to this construction site. He says, "Why should I buy $100,000 tractor when I got all these young men that need jobs?" And Milton says, "Well, then you're right. So let's take away their shovels and give them spoons. And then it'll take the entire country to build this road, this highway for 1 mile." And the guy realized that, yeah, that the tractor doesn't replace an employee, but an employee as a tractor is a lot more productive. It's just like the internet. It's just like AI. AI isn't going to replace jobs, but if you and I are both architects and I use AI and you don't, I'm going to be more productive, faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, scalable. I'm going to beat you because you're doing it the old way, and you're not going to beat the new technology. And 25 years from now, it'll be some other thing. It's always something that scares the primates. They all get freaked out and crazy about stuff like that. But AI. So I retired at 60. I sold my Today's Dental. I retired. It was fun. lived with mom in Wichita for a couple months. I went to Texas where 4 of my 8 grandkids live, and I lived there a couple months. And I was just going to the grandkids' houses and living with them and playing. But I'd already traveled the world. I mean, I'd lectured in 50 countries, many of them 4 or 5 times. I didn't want to do that. And after a year and a half of sitting on my butt, I got so bored, but it was about 2 years ago that ChatGPT came out. And I got 4 sons, and one of them is a computer programmer from NAU and got a master's degree at Oregon Health Sciences. And he kept saying, "Dad, Dad, Dad, you got to download this ChatGPT. You got to realize, my God, look at your Dental Town site. It's 25 years old. It's all the old HTML, C++. You could add AI to Dental Town." And I'm like, "What? What?" And I started doing a deep dive, and I was so dumb. It was like it took me from 94 to 98 to figure out what Amazon was, but that got me to start dentaltown.com. And it took me about 6 months of Ryan harping on me, and I finally realized, oh my God, this is like a game changer. This is the biggest this and I think what the Industrial Revolution did in 200 years, I think AI is going to do in about 20. But you got to remember with people in 1900, there wasn't one person on the planet who knew that in 30 years there'd be planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
And after the planes, trains, and automobiles were all there, not one person in America or the world could figure out that in 30 years they'd be standing on the moon. And my gosh, this AI is coming out and it is amazing. So, what I've been noticing is that you go into a dental office. Now, I was consulting with this dental office in California doing like 5 million a year. I don't want to say his name because it might get back to Dr. Chip Castine, my buddy. And but anyway, I said, okay, you got four people sitting here doing insurance claims. And you're paying them each, I don't know, I'm making up these numbers like, 50, 60, $70,000 a year for four people. I said, you can get an AI programmer with a degree, a master's degree in computer science, AI programmer for 100 grand. And they'll come in here and it'll take them about 3 months and they'll probably build all these tools and automated deals. And then you got four people doing it now. You'll probably have at the most two, maybe one will do it. And then that programmer's done, and then he can work on other tasks, like ordering dental supplies. I go look at the overhead deals, and I'll look at someone's overhead. And it's like this, I say, well, what do you want your dental supplies to be? And he says, well, our goal is 5%. And I'll say, well, some months it's 4%, some months it's 8%, 7, 5. It's all over the board, and you're relying on some human to have these systems and memory and knowledge and all this stuff. And then if she moves or gets married or pregnant or gets ran over by a truck, now we bring in a new person, and where's the system? And it takes like an AI programmer. They might sit back there for 30, 60, 90 days, figure out what you do, program it out. It is going to be amazing what AI can do. I mean, I started looking at I put out a magazine and a website. I had a full-time employee where all they did was convert the PDF magazine to an HTML for this one deal. It took a programmer about 3 hours to automate that process.
Yeah.
But the thing about automating it, and you say, well, that'll take a job. Well, who wants to have a job that no one else wants? I mean, like everybody's worried about Tesla if they came out with this semi truck, this automatic semi truck, that you would get rid of all these trucking jobs. Well, I got 4 kids and 8 grandkids. I'm not hoping that my 8 grandkids grow up to drive a semi truck down I-10 from LA to Jacksonville, Florida Atlantic, back to LA Pacific. I mean, what kind of life is sitting in a car? Now I'm in Phoenix where they did the Waymo was introduced. And Waymo, by the way, it's so funny, how Dennis freaked out on the internet in 98. I remember I'd go into lectures and people would just say this internet is no good and it's going to bring about bad info. They couldn't think of one good thing from the internet. And now they're doing the same thing with AI. And it's just funny they did that. Google decided to test their Waymo cars in Phoenix, and one of the biggest problems they have is that kids throw rocks at it. Because when a car drives down the street and there's no one in it, and you're 10 years old, your primal deal is, everything's fear or greed. It's like, oh my God, they throw rocks at it. Humans are just funky, crazy little animals. I love them to death. They're the best things about life and they're the worst things about life. They're crazy as can be. You see it in wars and politics, and they're just nuts. But it's always two steps forward, one step back. But this AI thing, this Waymo thing, I mean, why would I want to drive my car downtown Phoenix to try to park it at some game or concert or restaurant when I can call Waymo? If I call Uber, well, they have a person in there. Now they're going to talk to me, interrupt me. They might smell funny, be smoking, eating, whatever the heck. I call Waymo and it's like a chauffeur. I mean, they just pick me up. They drive me to my location. I get out. I go to a restaurant. I go to a concert. Whatever the heck. And then when I'm done, I just order it and I'm back to my house. And I think the AI Like right now, look at practice management. If I go to any dentist in America and say, "What is your overhead?" They say, well, I think it's about, I think it's about, that means you don't know. I mean, you should be able to drop a decimal point and tell me it's 49.8 or 64.5. And they say, I think it's like 60 or 65%. Oh, it's plus or minus 5%. All your sundries is just plus or minus. But the thing is, you get on those old computer systems and you can't just say, what's my overhead? You got to go generate a report. We know when we go into dental offices, 85% of all the reports have never been ran one time because it's not intuitive. Whereas when you got Chat GDP, I could sit there and I could, I could just I just hit this. I'm at McDonald's. What's the healthiest thing for me to eat at McDonald's for lunch?
McDonald's actually has a few healthier options if you're looking for something on the lighter side. You could go for something like a grilled chicken sandwich, or
So,
even
so the bottom line is the future of practice management will be, well, once you get your practice management, which by the way is a schizophrenic system because they have all their accounting in Quicken and they have all their practice management and open dental, Dentrix, EagleSoft, some Curve Dental, whatever, and they don't talk to each other. And AI can sit there and you could just go, could you imagine when a dentist, my goal is that when a dentist can get on Dental Town and if that thing is hooked up to his practice management software and his Quicken, where he could query and say, what is my overhead? It could come back in 1 second and say, your overhead is 64.3%. And then you can sit there and say, well, what are the drivers of my overhead? Well, your PPO, you sign up for 13 PPOs, and that has reduced your fee about 41.7%. And then you could say, well, do I make money with Delta Dental or Blue Cross or Blue Shield? And it'd say, well, currently you are signed up for 13 dental plans and you make money on four, you break even on four, and you lose your butt on four. And you'd say, which one are those? And then you could say, practice management advice. Because what we did on Dental Town is when the AI, what really hit me on Dental Town is number one, when I retired, I started feeling the separation. Dentistry started to polarize, just like America is half red, half blue, half Democrat. In any country I go to, I think Australia's got like 10 political parties. I mean, and I started seeing, my God, the young kids. They're pulling apart from the old kids. There's this obvious growing separation where you almost feel anger. They're like, Howard, you're old. You have grandkids. When you got out of dental school, it was easy. It was no PPOs. There were no DSOs. There was no capitation. There was, blah, blah. Delta Dental used to have, the board was filled with dentists and specialists, blah, all this stuff. And they felt like they graduated $500,000 in debt. The industry was taken over by corporate dentistry and they just felt threatened. And I felt threatened because I have 8 grandchildren. I want there to be sole proprietor, owner, operator dentists that go in there and say, Taylor, you have 3 cavities and you need 3 fillings. If that dentist works for Wall Street and there's some Wall Street broker saying, hey, we got to raise up our numbers, and well, how come all those big fillings aren't crowned, and how come everybody doesn't get scaling and root planing, and you did 10 cleanings yesterday and no one had periodontal disease. That 30% of Americans have periodontal disease. Can you imagine going to your physician? They say, well, 30% of all Americans have an STD, and so I'm gonna have to write down that you have some STD and start treating you for an STD that you don't even. I mean, it's just insanity. And I don't think it should be legal for a non-dentist to own a dental office. And I think many states have passed those laws. And I think, more of that legislation needs to go out there. We saw that with Boeing, where Boeing, I grew up with Boeing in Wichita, Kansas. They had a big manufacturing in Wichita and Seattle. And the head Boeing was always an aeronautical engineer that everyone just bowed when he walked by. It was like it was Carl Mish or something, like just like wow, or Pete Dawson or some great man just walked by. And then Wall Street got involved and said, forget all that crap. Forget Seattle and Wichita. You need to move your headquarters to Washington D.C., where all the money is, where you're selling planes to the military and you're selling it to the big aircraft companies. It only took 3 years and their planes started falling out of the sky. There's so many nuances in dentistry and aeronautical engineering that you really need to be an aeronautical engineer to run Boeing, and you really need to be a dentist to run a dental office. So what I thought is, well, how is my individual dentist going to compete with someone who has scale, where they're big enough where they can have a marketing department and an accounting department and HR and advertising and negotiate their own fees with the insurance companies? I mean, they go in there, they're getting paid, DSOs like Heartland are getting paid far higher fees than the sole practicing dentist across the street. There's no transparency there. So I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come back to work and I'm going to save Taylor's future dentist from having to work for some Wall Street MBA heartless, soulless man that just wants more money. I can't understand. Even when they're billionaires, they still do evil stuff. It's like, how much money do these people need before they can do the right thing like your poor mother does for free? Your mother does the right thing for free. They can't even do it for fair prices when they have billions of dollars. So it's a disease like alcoholism. I mean, alcoholics should not be drinking alcohol, and the billionaires should not be selling their soul for more billions, but they do it all day long in front of everyone. Everybody sees it. So I'm sitting there trying to take AI. So Dentaltown came out in 1990, came out St. Patrick's Day 99. So it had 10 million posts. We've had three magazines, our Fran Report, Dental Town, Ortho Town, Hygiene Town for 25 years, all them articles. I had 1,600 podcasts on Dentistry Uncensored, and PubMed had 70,000 published article research on dentistry. We put all that into a large language model that we're releasing in 2 weeks, is our goal. And so a dentist can say, well, what do you do? How do you find an MB2? How do you find a missing canal? What's the best forceps? Is it physics forceps? So, any question. And those 250,000 townies who have come and gone for 25 years and left all that information is right there at your fingertips. And the online CE, we got 650 courses, and I'm trying to take AI to make the tools. So, because that dentist has to wear so many hats, and accounting and marketing and HR and law and boards and all this stuff, let alone the hardest part, which is doing a root canal. I mean, what's harder than a molar root canal? I mean, you're trying to learn a root canal and you're so bogged down with admin that you finally just give up and go work and be someone's employee, which is fine unless it's Wall Street where money's the answer. What's the question? In fact, you look at most successful, really successful dentists, usually it's a husband and wife team, and the wife says, you figure out the dentistry, I'll figure out all the admin. So that dentist just got rid of half the intellectual people time and money load.
Yeah.
And every time I see someone just crushing it in peace, the staff turnover is low, they're happy, they have work-life balance, they have weekends off or 3-day weekends off. It's always a husband and wife team. And so I'm just going to try to write out the rest of my life with my son, taking everything we've built for 25 years, all the knowledge that the dental town has accumulated with all this new AI, so that a dentist can open up and practice. And when my grandchildren, Taylor or Lillian or Evelyn or Audrey Moon, all four of my girls, I got four boys, and but the girls just rip your heart out, and I just don't want some shenanigan crowning all of her teeth and doing all these just drilling and filling on all of her teeth just so they can make money for Wall Street. So that's my passion, and that's what I do.
Wow, that was astounding. It was amazing. It was so good to hear about it was like a roller coaster, I really, really enjoyed how you took It took us from the start through AI, and AI is really revolutionizing. And you're right about the fact that if the dentists don't adapt to it, they're going to be left behind. And before we close, Dr. Howard, there are just a couple of things more I would love for you to, your take on. I'd love to know the mistakes that you made and what did you learn from them. And if you ever have to start over, what are the things that you would not do that you've done so far?
Well, like I would say I hate saying this, but the biggest part is probably delegation because when you delegate to a team and they've been with you 5 years and 10 years and 15 years and 20 years, you trust that they're keeping up on it like you are with dentistry. Like I went back on my MBA, my FAGD, my MAGD, and I on Dental Town it just did not make the transition from SQL Server, old code to Python code, AI. And you can look at it on the, if you go to the dental site, it's the message board format where Reddit's got nested deal. And so I was always told that, Facebook had 50,000 programmers and we could never do anything like that. And that's another interesting thing. It's kind of true in the old world. But on the new world, I look at these programmers. ChatGDP writes 85% of their code,
Yeah.
does roughs it all out. Then they just have to fine tune. Now, when I started this a year and a half ago with Ryan, they said ChatGDP couldn't even do simple code. And 6 months later, it was doing really simple code. Now, if I talk to any of my programmers, they say, oh my God, if it's really simple, it gets it almost right. Usually you just barely have to tweak it. And then you listen to Jensen Wong of NVIDIA, who I've been listening to Jensen for 30 years. And it's like a lot of people think he's this new rock star. I've been listening to him before I had kids. I was listening to Jensen speak before I had Eric, and he's saying that in probably 2 to 3 years it'll write all the Python code automatically perfectly, and we're seeing that. Look at ChatGPT. 6 months ago, if I entered my article, my Howard Speaks every month on Dental Time Magazine, and said create me an image, it couldn't create me anything, and it
Yeah.
was crazy. Now it's pretty good. But if I uploaded your picture and I put Javier's name on it, it would take your picture and your mom would know it was you. You would know it was you, but your next door neighbor would I mean, so
Yep.
but in 6 months that'll be perfect. And so what's really exciting the most about this Python is right now, everybody needs a Python programmer and it's going to be pretty much automatic in 2 or 3 years. So what's going to be neat is humans are going to be left for the human stuff. That, like even my programmers, they'll tell me that when they sit down to program something, 80% of their time is trying to understand the problem. What are we trying to do? How should we lay this out? How will it work with everything? And then when they finally design the whole concept and know what they want to do, only 20% of their time is banging out code.
Yeah.
And now the banging out code part is probably going to be reduced 85% on simple stuff now, and all the complex stuff 85% 2 3 years from now. So you still need someone in your dental office that understands the system. But in the old day, it used to be a dental consultant, and a dental consultant would come in your office and you had like 5,000 charts. Well, if you said what percent of your patients are not scheduled for a recall appointment, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to pull 5,000 charts? So what we used to do is we'd take a ruler, we'd pull a chart, get the information, put a ruler there, pull that chart after 12 inches, and we'd pull one chart after every foot through all the charts, and then we would assume that since we had a really good method of sampling that we could extrapolate that sample, but it's all crap. Well, now that information's all digital, but it's all broken up. But when that consultant, what they would do is they would come in and tell you the same thing to you in Toledo, Ohio, as that they would if you practice in LA, Miami, Houston, or New York City. And now you're going to be able to have a consultant dial into your computer with AI, and she might spend an hour with all these AI diagnostics. Like take me as a comptroller. I used to have a 4-person accounting team, 4 people on accounting team. Now I brought in one programmer who is, has three accounting degrees with one of my old deal, and it's world class perfect. So now instead of four people, it's two. But there's AI that says, well, if I was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, what numbers would I need reported on every day, every week, every month? And it'll go and pull all those numbers and put them there. So that consultant will go in there and be able to extract all the data they need, and then they come back and say, okay, usually your big problems are HR. Either you got people that don't have the skill set. Or you got toxic people. Toxic people is the worst. But a lot of people go toxic there's no team synergy and they're not working for a goal and everybody's just clocking in and clocking out for a paycheck. When you get a big entitled office where everybody's just there for the money and no one's there for the heart and soul of what we're trying to do. And by the way, you look at a team, something like that,
Yeah. Okay.
but I still have no idea how to play the game, and I still have no idea what they're trying to do in cricket. It's just fun. You're food. You're with dentists, but I have no idea. But you look at the greatest teams. I mean, they can win the Super Bowl. If you win the Super Bowl, it's like a 95% chance you're not going to come back and win it next year. I mean, you got 50 players on a team, and you lose three or four or five players and you get three or four or five new ones. It changes the whole dynamic, everything. So HR is a never ending job. You never have a perfect team. You never know who's tomorrow is going to get pregnant, quit, move, get divorced, start drinking or drugging. I mean, people, who knows? But HR is everything. My book I wrote, Uncomplicate Business, you only manage three things: people, time, and money.
Yeah.
And if you get an A on time and money, and a C or a D or an F on people, you're dead. And if you get an A on people and an F in time and money, you're still going to fix it and go on to do great things. So HR is everything. And I think that so those consultants could come in there. They can do personal interviews. Everybody, they can say, Javier, what do you like most about working here? What do you like the least? What would you never change here? What would you change tomorrow? And then I'm going to go through. You have 10 teammates. I'm just going to go like on a football team or a cricket team. 10. Would you say all star and they're why we win the big game, or would you say they dropped the ball and that's why we lost the cricket game? Just win or lose, and you just go through 10 people and you say, Frank win, Henry win, Sam lose, Tom, whatever you go, and then but that's just her perspective, and they get the whole perspective, they got the whole financials, and I think that the consultant, I think, will only have to come in there for personal HR, but they can even like this the podcast. Like I could interview you. I feel totally comfortable. I could interview you for any position in my office and know if you were a fit just by the way you present yourself and
Yeah.
and the way your energy. And so I think that there's going to be the tools rapidly here where an individual sole proprietor dentist can open up anywhere and have the tools to have a successful office. And they're probably going to have to do what like Singapore did. America's, I love traveling around the world because you got to see dentistry practice so many different ways. Like a lot of people blame all their problems on insurance. I'm sorry, there's 200 countries on earth that don't have any form of dental insurance. So, if you blame all your problems on dental insurance, it's a lot easier for me to blame my problems on Delta Dental or DSOs or the American Dental Association. Everybody's ruining it but me. I'm
Yeah.
perfect. I do everything right, but Delta, DSOs, the American Dental Association, they're just they ruined everything. It's just insanity. And by the way, I think it'd be the best location in the world to practice in downtown big city in the middle of all the big DSOs because they have revolving door staff turnover. I go in there and Javier says I have four cavities. I scheduled to come back to get them done next month, and you no longer work there. And now Dr. M Dash. I say Dr. M Dash because whenever anybody sees an M Dash, because a lot of people they'll write a text or they'll write a letter or they'll write a post and they'll polish it up on ChatGPT. but it always throws an M dash. And no matter what you say, all they see is the M dash. So, oh my God, it's AI. I saw an M dash. And they start having PTSD and they fall out of their chair. I mean, monkeys are so strange, you know. I like them more than koala bears and giraffes and coyotes and porcupines, but god dang, they're crazy. The older you get, you just laugh. I mean, when you were little, it was serious and you took it personal. When you get older, you just got, God dang, those are crazy monkeys. They are the craziest monkeys. I don't think a chimpanzee, a gorilla, orangutan, or a bonobos combined are as crazy as one human in your own town. You know what I mean? And so I just think we're gonna get the tools. They're gonna, in dentistry. How many times are you told? I just want you to get an A on the diagnosis and exam. I'd rather if you get an A on the exam and you get a C minus on the dentistry, I'm good. But if you get an A on the dentistry and an F on the diagnosis, like you did a perfect root canal on a person who didn't need it because they had sinusitis. Yeah, you pulled a wisdom tooth perfectly, and there was no need for it. I mean, you look at wisdom teeth, and you go to Scandinavian countries, they pull 40% less wisdom teeth than the Americans. And you look at the Americans, and they all have this high production office where insurance came out and the big practice management consultants in the 70s, like Quest in America, were telling everybody, oh, well, you only have two dental chairs, one for you and one for the hygienist. You need four dental chairs. You need two hygienists. And then you need two chairs that you work on. Numb this patient, go drill here. And then when you're done here, this one's ready. And then we'll have an emergency room. So they had everybody go from two chairs to five, and they set up these big assembly lines of mass production. Then the insurance got involved and dropped the fee 40%. Singapore went through all that crap, and you know what they all did? They threw away everybody. When you go to Singapore, the average dentist has no employees. And the average dentist, this is his office phone. He knows all his patients. Javier calls up and saying, hey, can I get my teeth cleaned? Yeah, come by at 1. And he turns off his phone. He does the cleaning. And they'll only produce about maybe 250,000 a year, about 200,000 a year, but they'll take home 175,000 a year, and they'll have 3-day weekends. And right now, most of these dentists I look at, I walk in their office, I say, thank God this dentist was born, because look at all the jobs he's creating, and look at all the free dentistry he's giving away to people who come into your office with a Dr. Pepper and a cigarette and demand that everything be free. It's like, well, I'm going to walk into your house and say, Javier, I need my free dinner. Yeah, I'm here for my free dinner because I'm entitled to your hard work, your life, your people, time, money. I'm entitled to your existence. Whatever you produce is all mine, and that's fair. It's a strategy and it works. But I think the future in dentistry is gonna shift back to Singapore. I think the mass produced manufacturing. I think dentists are going to say, do I really want to do $1 million worth of dentistry to take home 200,000, or would I rather do $300,000 of dentistry? I want to show you a chart like on overhead. Like if you wanted to make $25,000 a month and your office had 50% overhead, you only got to do $50,000 of dentistry to make 25. But at 65% overhead, you'd have to do $71,500 to make $25,000 a month at 65% overhead. And I see it all the time after COVID. We lost a lot of hygienists, dental supplies. I see 80% overhead all the time. That means you'd have to do $125,000 worth of dentistry to make your 25,000. And I think a lot of dentists are sick of that and realize, hey, I wasn't born to provide all these jobs so that I could do dentistry at break even, no profit for all these ungrateful patients who at the drop of anything will call a lawyer or sue me at the state board of dental examiners. I've had enough. I'd rather have a smaller, intimate practice. And I was able to see this in Singapore. Now, I see this every once in a while in the United States. I've done some podcasts on, there's a woman dentist in San Francisco, no employees. I keep seeing it more and more, but I see people, they'll be on like 10 PPOs. and they'll say, okay, I'm making money on three, I'm breaking even on three, and I'm losing money at three. So I'm going to drop the three that I'm losing money. I'm going to quit doing dentistry at a loss. And on where I'm breaking even, I'm not going to accept any new patients from that insurance carrier. And here's the deal. They don't blink at dropping their fees 40% for insurance companies. But when I say everybody I know who does one, two, or $3 million, who's taking home 300, 400, 500,000 a year, they all spend between 5 or 7% on advertising to get in those half of Americans who either don't have dental insurance or don't want to go to some clinic they value, just like a car. You could get a Mercedes Benz, you could get a Toyota Tundra, you could get a used car. You could take the bus. You could take the Uber, a Waymo, a bicycle, or a rickshaw cart, or walk. I mean, it's market differentiation. Markets differentiate on price, and you're either going to be high volume, low margin profit, where you got to churn $125,000 of dentistry to make 25. Are you going to say, I'm going to be low volume, high margin, where you just got to do 50,000 to make 25? And, and a lot of people have tried over the years and it didn't work, but you're starting to see people get completely fed up with it. And they finally reached a breaking point. There's a guy out of Europe that lectures on slow dentistry. And he's like, just slow down, relax. And instead of doing five fillings for $1 each, why don't you do two fillings for 250 each? So and it'll always be yin yang, and the pendulum will always swing, and it went way too far. Mass production and mass insurance, it'll swing back, and then that will be have issue. It's always back and forth. But the neatest thing for me, lecturing to 50 countries, is I got to see entire countries doing it completely different ways. And when I would lecture there, they'd always try to put me in an expensive hotel, and I know they didn't have the money, and I knew that would be their cost. And I'd say, me and my sons, we'd actually rather live in a house like India. Are you from India? Is that where you're from right now?
No, I'm from Pakistan.
Okay. So when it's India, growing up in Kansas, I thought India, I thought they were all vegans and ate real healthy, and they're all an ideal weight. And I just believed, yeah, they're vegans and they eat healthy. I stayed at a dentist's house. They ate more sugar cookies and tea with sugar. I've never seen that much sugar consumption in my life. But they walked to work, and they walked. The reason they were ideal weight is because they walked so far. I saw an interesting study about McDonald's where they did this big study of United States versus Scandinavia, and with data they kept all the sex, age, income, all relative, and it turns out that they eat as much McDonald's as we do, but you know why we have twice as much obesity and diabetes as they do? Is because they walk a mile to McDonald's, eat the same crap, and walk a mile back.
Yeah.
We get in a car. In fact, you know that this is why I love data. Do you know the number one variable codependent causative on obesity worldwide? The number one thing. You probably think sugar, Coke, or chocolate bars.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Automobile cars. And when I was in Africa, I noticed it all the time. All these poor people would say, look at that rich guy in that Mercedes. And I'd look at this big old fat man get out of the car. And I thought,
Yeah.
rich. He's obese. He probably has erectile dysfunction. He'll probably die of a heart attack any
Yeah.
day. And you're walking, carrying this with a six pack. You don't have diabetes. You could run a mile. I mean, so I think there'll be lots of changes, but I think the world is going to get, to get world peace. It's the same problem with dentists run. The dentists can't run their office because all their data is not transparent. It's tucked away in paper charts. Half of their information is in Peachtree Accounting or QuickBooks.com or QuickBooks Pro. The other half's in EagleSoft. I mean, they just can't. They don't have the data to make it. Same thing with government. The reason you don't know, every government is based on how the mob was formed in Italy for the Roman Empire, and that's where the mob was, the Sicilians. I mean, government has been territorial mob rule, and it's all crazy. But once somebody hacks into all their computers and everybody gets to see what they're saying, who they're getting money from, who they're giving money to, who's killing people. It's going to find out it's not going to be against countries. It's going to be your own country's going to say, "Hey, why is the mayor killing people, taking bribes? Why is he doing all this shady stuff?" Because right now you know he's doing it, but you just don't have the proof. So it's all going to come down to transparency. Whenever you see evil, crime, and unprofitability and corruption, it's always opaque. And I think what AI and the internet and the digital revolution is going to do is bring transparency to the masses. And when they find out what their leaders are actually doing, saying, killing, bribing, and profiting, they're going to arrest them for police issues. They're going to say, that's a bribe. You're going to jail. You won't need another country to say, oh, your leader's an evil man and we're going to go to war with your pawns. It's like, why do all these young kids have to die because your leader's a crook and my leader's a crook? No, why don't we all take care of our own leaders and crook? And that'll be transparency. And that's what Snowden tried to do, to show you how evil these guys are. But it's really the same concept in your dental office. You're really smart. You're a dentist. Yeah, you're only a dentist because you got A's in calculus, physics, chemistry, and biology. And those are the four horsemen of thought. But my gosh, you're really, really smart, doc. You know geometry and trig, but you don't know your own overhead. You don't even know what your cost per hour. You don't know what's insurance. And once I give my smart dentist the data in a usable format, I know my homie. If you can do geometry and trig, you know what's wrong with your overhead if the data is presented right. And we're just going to get that data and that knowledge. Same thing, like when you're numbing up a patient, if 250,000 dentists have talked about this on Dental Town for 25 years and you're having a problem, you should be able to harvest everything they talked about and learned over a quarter of a century in 1 second, right in front of your eyes. Like, oh, I didn't think of that before. I forgot about that. Or, oh, thank you. So I think AI is going to make everything faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and scalable. And I'm more excited. I'm equally excited now as I was in 1990. When I finally got picture of the internet revolution, I was walking on water from 99 to 2005. Facebook started and we had so much traction it didn't even matter. And now I feel those same goosebumps with AI, especially since it can harvest everything we've done on the last 25 years. And my job is I don't want the young dentist to get out and look at every old dentist and say, you guys had it good and you guys ruined it. Before, when you got out of school, you didn't have all these problems. And now look how you left it. My mom always told me, you leave everywhere you go better than you found it. You leave the playground better. When we would get back in the car, my mom would stand by the trash can and she said, really? You couldn't find one piece of trash by that swing set? Same thing when we were camping. I remember one time my sister Shelly said, that's not our trash. My mom said, I don't care whose trash it is. You leave this place better than you found it. And I want to leave dentistry better than the way I found it. And I think I am. And I will. I'll be a part of that journey.